your host of A Cup of Lauren, your weekly shot of inspiration. And so today, champions, this is episode number 5. And I think this one is so important because it's about how to turn tragedy into triumph. We are all going to face challenges and problems in our life. Let's face it, it's not a matter of if, it's simply a matter of when. And I believe that it's not the size of our problem or challenge that's important. It's our perception of it. It's how big or how small we make it in our mind. And what we know is that whatever we focus on, whether it's positive or negative, we know that what we focus on magnifies. So if you stay focused on your problem and challenge, I promise you, it's going to get a lot bigger. So what's the solution? Well, it's focusing on how can you take that problem you're dealing with and how can you turn that scar into a star? How can you use that to serve and help others? They always say you have to be a test to be a testimonial. And so you're being tested. You're growing. We don't grow. We don't stretch when life is working. Let's face it. It's easy to be happy and up when life is working, but it takes a true champion to be able to turn adversity into triumph. And so I'm especially honored to introduce to you today someone who's very special to me. How many of you have met someone and right from the moment you met them, you just knew in your heart that this was someone that was going to be in your life forever, that you were just instantly endeared to them? Well, that's how Kelly was for me. And since our friendship began just 7 short years ago, it seems so much shorter than that. I had several occasions where I got to go to Houston and spend time with her. I actually stayed at her home with her fabulous family. I remember going to Houston another time and being able to do a team training for her team. And at the end of the training, oh my gosh, so she owns a Medi Spa. And they're like, oh my gosh, Lauren, come on, let's go do some fillers. Well, hello. Who doesn't want to get some fillers? And so I'm like, yay. So we go into the room, and I remember walking out of the room, and the person who was now my husband, Todd Robert, was not my husband at that time. He had never seen me without makeup. He was just like, oh my gosh, who is that? And the fillers, I literally looked like Donald Duck. And I remember we went back to the hotel. The guy opened up the door of our car and he just like looked at me like, who are you? So that's one of my interesting memories of Miss Kelly. But we just went on. She went on to become not only an amazing client who's attended all of our courses, but above and beyond that, someone I consider to be a friend for life. And it's one of those friends that you can be away from for 5 years, but when you pick up that phone and talk, you're right back to where that moment began. And so today, I want to introduce you to one of the most powerful women I know, who just 3 short years ago, it was right before August 30th, 2019. I want to introduce Kelly. And Kelly, I want you to begin by sharing with them where you were in 2019 before August 30th. So champions, would you all please give a huge, big, warm welcome to one of the most extraordinary human beings, Miss Kelly Davis from Houston, Texas. Yay! Welcome, Miss Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you. So, hello, everybody.
Do you want to tell them the name of your business and a little bit about it? Because I think it's
I'm sitting here listening. I'm like, yes, we are like soul sisters connected from the beginning. Kelly Davis. I'm in Houston, Texas, and I own Skin Essentials Luxury Med Spa and Salon. It's a 5,400 square foot facility. I've been in business for at this facility for 8 years, and then prior to that, 7 years at another location, and I was mobile before that. And currently, I'm a national trainer for CoolSculpting, BTL, which is the M Sculpt Neo, M Cella, M Fem, M Tone, all the really, and then Cynosure lasers. So I love teaching, I love training. As Lauren said, I met her seven years ago. I took a lot of her courses. She teaches the way that I teach, and she really helped me teach my team with her systems. And yeah, it's been an amazing friendship. And like she said, we just pick up where we left off whenever we do end up talking. So
Exactly. So Kelly, let's go back to right before August of 2019 and share with us what was happening in your life at that time. Where were you on your success mountain? How was your life working? How was your business working? What's your story?
So actually, it was my perfect life. I have 4 kids, and my older 3 were either in college or they were, one of them had started a business and they were successful, good kids. My youngest one was in high school. Again, just a good kid. My marriage had some rocky times in the past, but right at that point, we, both would say that our marriage was at a really good spot. My business had finally taken off because when I moved from one location to my Space Center location, which I'm currently at, I went from 2,000 square feet to 5,400. So it was a lot just to get it, it was like starting over. And so my business was at a good spot. Financially, I didn't have any issues. I was actually able to travel 6 times a year. It was kind of my perfect life. I felt like my blood, sweat, and tears had finally paid off. I felt like, all the heartaches that I did have in my marriage in the past had paid off. And, we would travel. We would take my parents, he's now my ex-husband. We would take his parents, all of our kids. We'd travel together. We did holidays together. I couldn't ask for anything more.
So basically, at this point, your life is working physically, mentally, emotionally, financially. You're feeling at the top of your game.
Yeah.
And then I remember on August 30th, you went to work just like every other day, only something happened that day that nobody is ever prepared for. And it's really hard for me to even say that because I feel the pain. So share with our listeners what happened that day that changed the course of your destiny.
So, so that morning I actually went to Toastmasters, which is a class to teach you how to speak in public. Lauren didn't even know until I talked to her yesterday that I actually had a fear of speaking in public. I was in the class for about a year. I actually did my very second speech that morning. And Lauren, we talked about yesterday, it's actually on hormone therapy. I'm really big on hormone therapy. I believe that everybody should have their hormones optimized just so that you live your best life, you feel your best. So I did a speech that morning, second speech, and being in there for almost a year. Came to my spa about 11:30. Everything's just normal. 3 men walk in and they look at me and they say, "Kelly Davis?" And I say, "Yes." And they say, and I didn't know who the other man was till we get back to the room. And they said, "Can we speak to you in private?" And at that time, a lot of med spas were being cracked down on for not being compliant. I actually thought maybe that's something, maybe I didn't cross the T's or dot some I's. I didn't know. So I thought, okay, where am I going to take 3 men? So I start walking to the back of my business where a CoolSculpting room is, which happens to be my favorite room and my biggest room. And so I walk back there and I'm sitting there, my heart's beating, my stomach's turning. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm sitting there going through my business. Like, what have I done wrong? And I couldn't think of anything. So we walked in the room and they said, "Can you take a seat, please?" And I sat down and they asked me, "Where's your son?" And I have 3 boys and 1 girl. So I said, "Which one?" And they honed in on Matthew. And so Matthew was 21 and him and I talked and text every day. And so I knew where he was. He had started his own business called Supreme Polish and Finish. And he was on his way home from Lubbock because he had been up in Lubbock, Texas, doing some work and getting some additional training. And he was on his way home. So I told him that. And so then they said, "Well, what does he drive?" And he had just changed vehicles. So I started kind of getting panicky because I honestly didn't think it was anything bad. I thought that it was, I didn't know. I thought maybe he got in some trouble with the law, honestly, because, up until that point, I always thought my family was supernaturally protected. So I'm thinking, okay, what did Matthew do? And so I was like, he drives a white truck. I mean, black, because he had just traded it. And then they asked me another question. And then finally, one of the troopers said, is there anything on him you can identify? And I said, he wears a cross necklace. And whenever I said that, the trooper's head did this. And this is his death month. It was 3 years ago. That's when I knew that Matthew had gone to heaven. And I started screaming. And whenever Matthew was born, he was born preemie. And I had not been to church since I was in 3rd grade. And so the doctors took him right from me whenever he was born. And he couldn't breathe. They said he might not live. And if he does, he'll be here 4 to 6 months. So he didn't have a name. So that night I went to sleep and God spoke to me and he said, your son will be fine. I want you to name him Matthew. Matthew means a gift from God. And again, I hadn't gone to church since I was in 3rd grade. So I didn't know that. So I woke up the next morning, looked that up. Sure enough, Matthew means a gift from God. So I named him Matthew Bryan. A few days later, he had to get a blood transfusion. My brother ended up being his donor. They said there was only a 1% chance anybody in our family would be a donor. My brother and I are both adopted, so we don't even have the same blood. And so for my brother to be Matthew's donor and his middle name is Brian, it was like God completely named Matthew. So Matthew and I have the same blood type, and they said it's very rare. And so it was really crazy that my adopted brother ended up being his donor, and I had named Matthew Bryan already.
Wow.
From home from the hospital when he was 13 days old. He wasn't blind. He wasn't deaf. And he actually ended up being 6'1", 200 and something pounds, just beautiful. Him and I talked and texted every day. He hugged me. He'd still snuggle in bed with me and literally snuggle up and lay his head on my chest. And I mean, he's just such a loving boy. Wow. And so whenever the trooper said, whenever I said he wears a cross necklace, I just screamed over and over, God, why did you give him to me and take him away? You named him. His name's Matthew. Matthew means a gift from God. How am I supposed to bury one son and marry the other in the same month? And that was screaming I was screaming that over and over for about 3 hours until my whole family came in, because Matthew was 21 and Ethan, his brother, was 21 also. And we already had a wedding planned at our house that day, or September 28th. So I literally had to throw a wedding for his brother less than a month after he died. And when I got home, I found out that there was a fire and the cross necklace was the only thing that survived the fire. And so that's how I identified him. And
so how does one get through something like that? What happened next? How did you deal with such a tragedy? How did it impact your family? How did it impact you?
Well, it was pretty terrible. I was dark for a while. At that point, I served God. You actually could walk in my business and hear Christian music playing, and I have scripture everywhere. And I know that I always help people find Jesus. And so it was, it took me down. I actually screamed multiple times that I hated God. I couldn't understand how, as obedient as I was, that he would let something like that happen. And it was pretty bad for a while. I was very dark. And I could feel it. I could just feel just dark and heavy, and I was fighting because I knew God was real. I mean, I had too many Matthew's birth was one miracle. I had too many miracles in my life, so I knew God was real, but I just didn't understand how this could be. And so I lost him August 30th, 2019. Then my spa floods in December that year. We had actually had a trip planned already. And literally I get there one night, the next morning I was in Washington, get out of the Washington White House tour. I'm getting a call that my whole spa had flooded, a water heater had busted. So I had to catch a plane, come back home. I'm like, what did I do to deserve this? My hair starts falling out in February. So we had to close half of December. February, my hair's falling out in chunks. March, COVID hits. I mean, it was like all in 7 months.
The perfect storm.
Oh, it was, yeah, it was. And honestly, I didn't care if I lived. I didn't care if I died. I was so broken. I just didn't care about anything. And, but when COVID hit and my business was looking at being shut down, it
You know,
was,
and I want to ask you a question though before you go to COVID, because I remember you shared something that I think is so important to mention. You told me that you had this perception that when everyone, you were so loved in your community because you do so much charity work, that you felt like you would just, your business would go up, that people would want to help and support. But it was interesting what happened. So could you take just a moment, Kelly, and share with us what happened really?
yeah. So, and that's, yeah, because whenever COVID hit, my business was in a really bad financial spot because from August, September, October, November, December, January, February, I was barely showing up to work. I couldn't barely get out of bed. I didn't want to. I think I was going to go and I couldn't. And, and again, closing for my spa flooding in December. And I guess in my mind, I thought since, everybody watched me and my kids grow up, I thought that my business would sustain and people would kind of just do what they could to support my business while I was down, because I mean, I did still take appointments at that time, but obviously I wasn't going in. So I just kind of thought, okay, at least God's going to make sure my business is financially taken care of and the community will support me. And actually it was just the opposite. I had a huge financial loss through that time because what I found was people didn't know what to say to me. They didn't know if I was, because I would try to go to the spa here and there, and they just didn't know what to say. Because what do you say to a mom who loses her child? There's nothing you can say. There's nothing you can say.
What's interesting about that, Kelly, is my husband, Todd Roberts, he lost a 9-year-old daughter, and he didn't care if he lived or died. And he just would pray every day that God would take him because he couldn't handle the pain. But he said the same thing. He said that he thought that all these people would, love all over them and be really supportive. But the same thing, they actually disappeared. And I think if there's something we can take away, is when someone has a tragedy or a loss, no matter how small or how big, I think that's when people need us most. Yeah. Just if it's just to sit there with them and listen, or to hold their hand, or to sit there and say nothing, but just to let them know I'm here for you. So your business went down instead of up. Then you had the flood. Then bam, COVID hits. Now what?
Now my business is going to be shut down because the law, and I was honestly at that point, I was 14, 15 years in a location, not including, my mobile business prior to, but my overhead is so high. I took probably about $400,000 out of my savings to hold afloat for those 4 months. I mean, it was bad. And so when COVID hit and we're sitting here having to look at closing down, I literally thought, I'm going to lose my business. I've made it this far. I've made it through hurricanes and I've made it through all kinds of stuff. And now I'm going to shut down. That's what I thought. And so again, at that time, I was really dark. When I say dark, I knew God was real, but I just was so angry. And I couldn't ever pray. I couldn't pray anything. Before losing Matthew, I had a relationship with God that was very unique. I just considered him my dad, and I just really, truly loved him. And I didn't feel that way towards him. And so it's hard for me to even go to him and ask him for anything, because to me, he ruined my life. And so, but that weekend, I remember the rodeos closed and schools closed here in Houston. And that was the first time that I was able to pray more than, why did you take Matthew from me? And I remember just very clearly hearing, trust me, don't live in fear. I'm going to use you. And literally just like that, my whole body just felt like an instant, just peace. And I didn't know at the time that was the Holy Spirit, but I understand the spiritual world in a whole different way now that I've had to face the tragedies that I've had to face. But yeah, God picked me up from the pit, the dark pit that I was in, pulled me up literally just like that. And I mean, I still had, even it's emotional today. This is his death month. I still have, sad days and days that I cry, but that was the turning point in my journey, honestly. And I never went back to, and when I say dark, like Satan's real, he was trying to take me down. And honestly, at that time, I didn't care if I got taken down. I didn't care.
Share with us, because this is incredible. It's what I started out saying. Like, how do you take a tragedy and turn it into triumph? And share with them what God put on your heart and what you've been doing. How did you use your gifts and talent to lift others up during such a challenging time?
So, like I said, instantly when he said, "Trust me, don't live in fear, I'm going to use you," I instantly just felt better and I couldn't explain it. So now I'm looking around at everybody and everybody's like freaking out. I mean, freaking out about like hugging somebody. They're freaking out about going outside. I mean, like it was the craziest thing I ever saw in my life. And I'm like going, what? Well, I'm watching everybody. I'm like, hey, Jesus says, don't live in fear. Like, what are y'all doing? I mean, like they were so everybody was so over the top. And I was like, oh yeah, calm, like, oh yeah, whatever. And so God really used me during that period to just, everybody would just flock around me. My employees at first, everybody leaves, and I gave everybody the option that I would, pay them as long as they did something at home. I was, minimal, like it was crazy what I was having to do, but they all stayed home for about a week. And then, cause we could see one patient at a time for a hormone optimization, they would all come back because the news and everybody was freaking them out. Of course, I'm like praying with that's when I started praying out loud. I never prayed out loud with anybody before. Started praying, I was holding everybody's hands and praying with them. And like clients would walk in and they'd be, like all frazzled and like, oh my gosh, like it's COVID. I was like, it's a virus. Like, cover your mouth, wash your hands. I mean, it's not that big a deal. Like to me, it was so minimal, such like nothing. I mean, like I lost my son and you're freaking out about a germ. I mean, come on, guys, seriously. So
that's the same thing my husband said. When you lose a child, all this other stuff is just so
nothing
superficial.
Like, yeah, you
get to a point in my life where
yeah,
that just went viral.
Yeah, like nothing can really faze me now. But I remember I needed to laugh. And so my reps kept telling me, you need to get online, you need to get social media presence so that people don't forget about you. And so I was like, okay. So it was, I know this was all God because one, like I said, I had a fear of public speaking that included being on video. And, but all of a sudden I just decided, okay, I have to laugh. So I start like thinking of like funny things to do, funny videos. Cause we were like wanting to play games with our clients, online and stuff like that. And so I actually started rewriting songs and turning them into like videos for my business. And my very first one was, I took Baby Got Back and these are my lyrics. Oh my gosh, look at that virus. It is so big. I mean, who understands those viruses anyways? They only attack because people don't protect their immune system. I mean, I use vitamin C and 80K and whatever else is out there. I mean, it's just easy. Baby, fight back. And it was so funny. And so I made this.
It was hysterical. I remember watching it and I hadn't laughed in a while, but that made me laugh. I was like, Hollywood, your next star is in the making.
Yeah. And so that was funny because when I made it, and I mean, like, I wish I had it to show. When I made it, it was Liz had actually worked with me for like 10 years. And like, I have nurses that work for me. So I'm like in the office, like chanting this out. Who wants to make a video with me? And all my nurses are like, this. And Liz is like, I'll do it. Yeah. Like, they're like, okay, yeah, you're funny, but no, thank you. Like, I'm going to duck for cover. And so I ended up, Liz said she would do it with me. And so Liz has like a background in like singing and, all that. We'd already worked together for 10 years. I'm telling you, it was the first time I laughed. I didn't think I was ever going to laugh again in my entire life. I laughed so hard because I think it's called the Roger Rabbit or something. I mean, I do this dance move, like going across the screen. I mean, the whole thing was so funny. So I laughed so hard making it. And I thought, well, what do I have to lose? I've already lost everything anyways. I mean, might as well put it online and just see what happens.
If we're going to go down, let's go down laughing.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, here I'm this super high-end luxury med spa, and this video is very out there, crazy. And so I put this video online, and I'm telling you, everybody started contacting me. Oh my gosh, That was so funny. You made me laugh. Like it literally like just went viral. It was so, because it was like, one, nobody's ever seen this in me before. Two, it was during a time when everybody was so negative and isolated. And I mean, just, the lies from Satan on like isolating and dividing everybody, making everybody argue over like stupid crap, right? I mean, it was just so ridiculous. And so here, I ended up being Crazy Kelly. That's how I got nicknamed by Facebook as Crazy
Yeah,
Kelly.
you were Crazy Kelly, and what was Liz?
Is Lunatic Liz. Yeah. So we started doing, I mean, like it just went crazy. I took Ice Ice Baby and turned it into Jesus, Jesus Baby. And I mean, it was so fun. And so, so that alone, I was actually closed down for, I think, about 5 weeks minus our hormone optimization. When we opened back up, I literally that first week counted 10 people that came in for like lasers, cool sculpting, injection, like our high-end services, 10 new people from my online presence.
That had never been to your spa before.
No, never been to my spa before. But it was, and still to this day, I have people come in all the time and they're like, I feel like I know you. I'm comfortable walking in here, because again, and this, Lauren, people want to do business with people they know, they like, they trust, right? And so when they get to know me online, just by seeing because I'm what you see is what you get. I pull my business into it, my personal into it, my Jesus into it, my silly into it. Yeah, you get all my 20 personalities when you meet me.
Exactly. Wow. So you actually, through COVID, you got restored. Your business grew. Yeah. You grew. You were being restored. You were being used by God to make a difference for others. Yeah. So you're kind of building yourself back up again. And then what happened, Kelly?
So then, yeah, I've been through quite a bit. So when I started, this is honestly really sad. When I started feeling good and healthy and happy again, which was like the first spring after losing Matthew, he's my husband at the time. My husband, he's my ex-husband now. He got real angry. And so grief goes in cycles. I honestly don't even know the whole cycle, but I think it's like accepting and then, anger and then sad. I don't even know them all, but I know that I think I skipped most of them because I think I was just angry. And then I just went into acceptance. I feel like I've had anger and acceptance. And so when I accepted Matthew's death, and again, I'll just be transparent. God has also shown up really big with me and given me some very huge supernatural signs to let me know that Matthew is in heaven. I shared a video with Lauren that I have on one of my YouTube channels. That's just amazing. I had this song come in the spa one night out of nowhere. All the radios were off, called Beautifully Broken. And it only came in one room. We've got speakers all over the whole spa. And it was just, there's so many things that God has done to just show me who he is and where Matthew is. And so with that being said, I understand spiritual warfare in a way that I never understood it, never even knew it existed before. So when I had acceptance and knew that Matthew was in heaven and that God had him, and Matthew's up there fighting a battle while we're down here fighting a battle. And, but my husband at the time got real angry and he turned his anger around on me. It was very terrible what I had to go through. It wasn't him. It's what Satan does. Satan, when you hear the scripture, Satan kills, steals, and destroys, I watched it firsthand. That first summer, our summers are a little difficult because we go from like May is Mother's Day. So again, COVID, that March, April, I'd start feeling better. Then we have Mother's Day. Then June is Father's Day and my daughter's birthday. Taylor and Matthew were 13 months apart. Taylor actually just turned 25. Matthew should have been 24. Then the next month in July, we've got Matthew and Cade's birthday back to back. Cade is my youngest. He actually was 15 when we lost Matthew. And so that first summer he turned 16 on July 20th. On July 21st, Matthew he should have been 22. And actually, Cade just got his license he got his driver's license the day before Matthew's first heavenly birthday and gets in a car wreck on Matthew's heavenly birthday. Yeah. So that's a whole nother story. You can't live in fear and you just can't worry. Matthew got in a car accident. Cade gets in a car accident. It's just crazy. So that's July. And then August 5th is the last day I saw Matthew alive. August 14th, was we flew to Lubbock that year into the golf tournament for Matthew, and then another family lost their daughter. My friend Naomi lost her daughter and her 3 grandchildren on Matthew's death month that first year, and then I've got his death weekend. And then I actually ended up helping that family out. God had me open up my house on Matthew's death weekend for the celebration of life for that family. That's also how I found out like healing comes from helping others, laughing, being creative. Like that was like between my videos, knowing I was helping others. And then like I actually felt okay on Matthew's first death anniversary because I was focusing on Naomi and her family that weekend. And then, but it was a rough run. So I'm feeling better, still some things to get through, but my husband at the time was angry and, no one really saw it. It's one of those things where, you can put on a front, in public to everybody. And, I didn't talk about it because I just kept praying it was going to go away. And it was very brutal. There was a lot going on behind the scenes that, it was bad. It was really bad. And, the things that were being said to me and done to me was bad, but it wasn't him. It wasn't the person that I married. It wasn't my perfect husband that I had the year before. And then October through April, it got better. And by through March, but last April, it started up again. And by last June, I was begging God to remove him from the house because it was so traumatic on me. I was losing my hair again. I was doing everything I could. It was affecting my business. My business was now suffering again. It was bad. And so then we end up finding out that he had cancer. I put all my feelings aside to help him. It was throat cancer. This is another spiritual part of this. God actually, again, he speaks to me. I'm not shy about it. I speak on what I know. Everybody knows I tell the truth. I don't lie about stuff. And, but at one point there was some drinking and God told me to tell him he had throat pain and ear pain for about a year and a half. No doctors could figure out what was wrong. He had MRIs, CAT scans. We were treating him for TMJ. And then God told me to tell him to stop drinking and surrender his life to Christ and he would be healed. I told him that, and he told me I was an idiot. And a month and a half later, a big tumor showed up underneath his throat and all down his lymph nodes. He had cancer. It was inoperable. I put my feelings aside to help him heal. And then he was actually healing supernaturally. God had me pray a healing prayer over him. And he had actually stopped drinking and was eating a healthier diet and taking ivermectin. After about 2 months, he was feeling better. He had no throat pain, no ear pain. And he actually was wanting to try not to do chemo or radiation. And then we went to 2 dinners back to back. And I remember him giving his diet and ivermectin the glory. And I was like, and God, and prayer, hello. And then he drank red wine, got an excruciating headache that night. The next week did the same thing. And I thought, this is not going to be good. And then the next week he started swallowing water in his airways and he had to start the chemo and radiation. Right around that time is when a lot of things started surfacing and I found out everything he was saying about me to the community and to my kids and a lot of lies and manipulation and stuff. And when I confronted
basically the relationship's just spiraling down and
it was terrible.
And now, if I'm not mistaken, I think you are officially divorced or close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we're divorced. So it was crazy. Like I said, I was begging God to move him out of the house back in June. Then God had me, helping him. And I was actually thinking his cancer was going to restore our marriage and, that kind of stuff. And, because we'd been to a marriage retreat in the past that was really good, life-changing, marriage-changing for us. And I had actually asked him to go to it a couple times before the cancer came up and even through cancer. But I'm telling you, Satan got a hold of him. It was not my husband.
We all know the battle begins in the mind and then it goes into the body.
October So when I
Well,
confronted him,
well,
October,
I just want to, oh my gosh, we could talk for hours and hours and hours because you have so much that people want and need to hear. Our time is coming to an end here, but you know, Kelly, you and my husband have a lot in common. And listening to you, you know, he lost a child. He lost his marriage because of the loss of the child. And unfortunately, that happens to a lot of people. So your tragedies, these are not small, these are gigantic. These are ones you never hope will ever happen to anyone. But can you, in some final closing words, in just like 1 or 2 minutes, can you just share, like, what advice would you give to others who are going through major challenges, obstacles, or tragedies? If you had to go back and do it all over again, what would you have done differently that perhaps could save someone else all that you went through?
so there's a lot of power in your excuse me. There's a lot of power in your mind, and there's a lot of power in your words. And what I tell anybody and everybody is, when you have a bad thought come into your mind, rebuke it right then. If you have, don't let anything bad or negative come out of your mouth. Even a perfect example is, a doctor tells you that you have cancer and you have 6 months to live. You say, thank you for your information, but my God is bigger than that. My God is a miracle worker. And you speak only positive things over your life and over your family and over your friends. And there's definitely more of a chance of a miracle. You know, God's will is God's will, but there's more of a chance of a miracle happening when you speak positive over your life and over yourself, and serve God. I mean, there's people don't understand. They think that they can only serve God if things are good. But realistically, I mean, I'm telling you, if I had not let him pull me up, I would be dead. There's no other option for when you go through tragedy. It doesn't make sense to the person who's never been the mom that lost their kid, because you think, I'd never be able to serve God. I actually said that 2 months before Matthew died. I said, God, don't ever take my kids from me. I don't think I could serve you anymore. But in retrospect,
Wow.
that's the only way. That's the only way. God is the only way.
Wow. Well, you know, self-talk is everything. And as I said at the beginning, what we think, what we speak magnifies. So if we focus on the tragedy, if we focus on the problem or challenge in our life, it's only going to get bigger. And in every self-help book, every inspirational book I've ever read, they all say the same thing. When you are going through difficult times, the last thing we want to do is serve others. That's like the last thing. No. I need to put the oxygen mask on me. But what everyone says and what the Bible says is, that is the time. If you will look at, how can I take this time and serve someone else or serve others? It's amazing how yours will become better and so much faster. I've experienced it in my own life so many times. Look at how God restored you by doing that.
Yeah.
And he will restore anybody listening. So, Kelly,
helping others, I'm telling you, helping others is definitely being creative, helping others, and laughing. That's it.
Doesn't have to be something big.
Open a door for somebody. Be nice to somebody. Say a kind word. That's it.
Just smiling at someone.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you look at someone and smile and say hi. Some people are so shocked by it, they can't even respond. They just look down. But you know what? Be the light and shine brightly. Look at, you know, who can I take a little box of cookies over to? Who can I go read to that can't read right now? It can be the littlest things we could do. Maybe there's someone who can't drive and we could take them to the grocery store. We think we have to do these big things, but no. And so, Kelly, I hope that no one ever has to go through what you do. But I know that that's unrealistic, because we know that bad things happen to beautiful people, to good people. It's life.
Yeah.
None of us are going to skate through it. We're all going to have challenges, problems, tragedies. We're all going to face it. But again, it's, who are we going to be in the face of it? What are we going to do?
It's a matter of what you do with it, I believe.
Exactly. So be kind to others when they're down. be there for them. I heard you say that.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid. Just be with them and say, look, if I just have to sit here and say nothing, let me just be with you. Serve others when you're down, and you'll get blessed. And all of a sudden, your problem, you'll just start to see it go away. And watch your mindset, your self talk. What we think, what we say is the game changer. And
Mhm.
so you've just made so many terrific points. And I want to thank you. And I just want you to know how much I love you as a person. You have always, from day one, you have always been an inspiration to me. But watching you go through all that you have, and to hear you always say nothing but positive things, and to go out there and change other people's lives, you are an inspiration not only to me, but to millions of human beings. And I pray that God will abundantly bless you for your servant's heart, for using your gifts and talents to make a difference for others, and that your business will prosper, your family will prosper, that your greatest success story is yet to be written. And I can't wait to be a part of it. So I want you to know I will always be here for you.
Well, feeling
Always.
speechless.
You can always count on me, and I know I can always count on you. So I hope everybody who was listening that this touched their heart, their soul, their spirit. I really am so hopeful that there was someone this message touched that is going through this right now, and you just changed the course of their destiny by something you said and are helping to put them on the right course. So thank you, Miss Kelly Davis. And
You're
I
welcome.
look forward to seeing you soon. And bye to all of our champions. Thank you for joining us for A Cup of Lauren, your weekly shot of inspiration. And today we juiced it up and made it an espresso. So bye, Miss Kelly. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
We love you.